What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the next episode of Football Talk with Hawk. Welcome in. Whether you're listening on Spotify or on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us today. We have got interesting stories a brewing. Different things that are happening, different coaches, different players. It's headline time in the NFL. As I said last week, the NFL needs to be given credit, exactly where credit is due, for how they changed the basic lottery push for coaches right after the season was over. I don't I don't think it's a I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Not allowing teams to hire a new coach until the playoffs are at least halfway over, especially when you're interviewing playoff participating coordinators and staff. The Detroit Lions, Ben Johnson, well-known commodity at this point. My guess is will be offered a contract where he wants it, maybe not. It's a first-time coach. I don't know if I'm offering a first-time coach $10 to $15 million a year because, he's still new. It's not like he's had success. So I don't know if I will actually do that, and I don't know what team is going to be willing to make that push. But the way that everything is playing out currently, there could be a massive shift in who's able to do what. So before we go over some current things that are happening, I want to give you five coaches, and we're going to refer to this, my guess is, all the way through next year. Five coaches that are on the hot seat in 2024. Now, disclaimer, this list can change one time after the Super Bowl. So this is my way too early top five candidates that are on the hot seat in 2024. Number one, Matt Eberflus. He was told, get it right on the offense. Fired Luke Getsy. Bad mistake. Justin Fields was the problem with that offense, not Getsy. Tonyan was open. DJ Moore was open. Routes were being run well. They don't have a number one back at all. So Eberflus has been given the 1 year fix it, make it right speech. He's on the hot seat. Dennis Allen also has been given that. Fired Carmichael. Carmichael is fired from the Saints instead of firing the head coach. The offense wasn't a problem. Dennis Allen's defense was abysmal. Like, I don't know why they fired the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator kept scoring points. Your defense didn't stop anybody. The offense can't score 50 points every game. They had to outscore the Lions to be able to win. Couldn't do it. They had to outscore the Packers. Couldn't do it. They beat the Buccaneers. They beat the Falcons. Offensive explosion. Granted, that game the defense did its job. And when the defense did its job, I mean, the team was good. You blew out Atlanta. You absolutely blew out Atlanta. You did your job. So, Dennis Allen is definitely on the hot seat with New Orleans. I believe that based off of how everything is going to be, with 2 first-round picks, Jonathan Gannon is definitely on the hot seat in Arizona. He could end up being a coach that's given the 1-year fix-it next year. But being brutally honest, you got 2 first-round picks. You still have Kyler Murray. You should drastically improve. You should win at least 6 games, 7 games next year, minimum. So Jonathan Gannon. So there's 3. 4 is Robert Saleh. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy and they miss the playoffs, Saleh could easily be fired, even if they go 9-8. It's just his defense is really good. And if he were to be fired, he'd be the defensive coordinator for an offensive coach somewhere really quickly. Because his defense is good. Great. So that's not a question. The question is whether or not it makes sense and works for what they do. It just, the way that Saleh coaches, I like his coaching style. I just don't know if he can do it all the way around. I don't know if he can coach the entire team. That's my question with him. So Robert Saleh, Jonathan Gannon, Matt Eberflus, Dennis Allen, and I'm going to throw this one out there because I don't necessarily, this is why it's the way too early. This one hasn't been fired yet as of the time of this recording for the podcast. Mike McCarthy. Here's why I don't know if Jerry's going to fire him this year. Who is he going to get? Who is there that can really come in and put a stamp on the Steelers? See, if Mike Tomlin comes in, I think he keeps Dan Quinn. If Bill Belichick comes in, as Shannon Sharp said on First Take, that team is not unprepared to play against the Packers. The aspects that are there right now are interesting. The Dallas Cowboys lack toughness. I think Mike Tomlin is the perfect fit for Dallas. If you fire McCarthy, then I could easily see Jerry trying to trade for Tomlin, and I think Tomlin would agree and get the long deal done, and he would go be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I really do think that that's kind of where we're at right now. I really do. Because, I mean, who wouldn't? You're not going to get a bunch of the personnel. You're going to run the team. That's your job. So I could see that happening this year, maybe, but I think it's going to be next year. I think Jerry's going to go. I think Lowry is going to fire Sirianni. Washington needs a new head coach. The Giants have Dable, but it's the Giants. And he's going to look and go, do I want to be a third team in this division with a fired head coach? Starting brand new. If all these other teams have new coaches, normal thinking says I've got the advantage over Washington and Philadelphia automatically, first year new coach. And then you believe you're better than the Giants. You're Jerry Jones. So I can see him waiting. But I think next year McCarthy will have to win something to make it all be okay. So right now, that's my 5. I don't know if McCarthy's going to get fired on Wednesday or not. I don't. By the time you guys are listening to this, Sirianni and McCarthy may both have been fired. I don't know. I know it's going to be interesting. After the divisional round is when everybody can officially hire coaches. And we're going to jump into that here in a second. But that's my way too early top 5 coaches that are on the hot seat. Matt Eberflus from Chicago, Dennis Allen from New Orleans, Robert Saleh from the Jets, Jonathan Gannon from the Cardinals, and Mike McCarthy from the Cowboys. Assuming he doesn't get fired, and it will be changed by the end of the Super Bowl. Okay, now let's pivot here to a little bit of what is going on in the coaching ranks. First of all, Bill Belichick and Arthur Blank must have hit it off in their meeting in Atlanta. 3 hours. 3 hours of Bill Belichick sat and talked with Arthur Blank and Dimitroff. If I am the Falcons, and if I'm Arthur Blank, as long as Belichick told me he can get McDaniels back in the building, and that he will take a quarterback with the first pick in the draft, unless we're trying to trade for one. Unless we're trying to trade for one. Of which I don't see. I don't see it. Justin Fields be but I don't see it. Kirk Cousins would work really well with McDaniels. I think McDaniels would make Justin Fields a little bit better. There are a couple quarterbacks I could see working in that aspect, in that system, with that setup. But as long as he said, I'm going to bring in McDaniels, and he's not going to get player control, team control, I think that fit is perfect for what Atlanta needs and a new, fresh, young start for Bill Belichick. Do you remember? And Sean McVay recently said it. He said it this past week in all the interviews leading up to the Lions game. They weren't supposed to be in the playoffs. They weren't supposed to be a 10-win team. This was supposed to be the rebuilding year. Dead cap hit. Losing older players that retired. Bunch of rookies everywhere. Undrafted players. Late round draft picks. All that stuff. And Sean McVay, who has gone back and forth and hinted at early retirement, whatnot, said something that is, I think, key for what's going to happen for guys like Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick. I could see Jerry Jones potentially trying to get a guy like Nick Saban, except it won't be necessarily the exact same. But Sean McVay said, these young guys gave me the love for football again. These young guys gave me the love for football again. Maybe that's what Bill Belichick needs. Young guys in Atlanta that have won. They're not losers. That team is 14-20 in its last 34 games, the last 2 seasons. They're not losers. They don't have a quarterback. They've had dead cap. They're clear of the dead cap now. They've got draft capital. They were smart. They've got picks. So, Bill's going to a team that's got youth, energy. They play in a dome. I think that position for Bill Belichick would be fantastic. It may invigorate Bill with a love for the game again. Remind him why he loves football. We know, listen, it may be a stereotype, but it's real. Old guys get grouchy, set in their ways. Brady didn't like young receivers. Manning coached them up. Manning worked with everybody. Went to a brand new franchise, brand new young receivers, coached them all up. Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker. Reality. Just what it is. So, the way that this layout looks like, the Titans, I don't know what their real plan is. It's got to be offense. But I don't know who you go with because the Titans are a tough team. They embody Mike Vrabel. You know you're losing Derrick Henry. Are you going to trade Jeffrey Simmons and get a second-round pick potentially a second and a fifth for him? I think that's a big question right now. But the Titans' position, who they're going after, really isn't clear. Because it doesn't, first of all, the firing didn't make any sense. So what are you going after? The Seahawks are the same way. The Seahawks can win. They can win now. They did win. They lost out in the playoffs on a tiebreaker. Like, they can win now. What's the plan? Those are two teams that I feel really, whoever they hire, I don't think they're going to be better than the previous coach. Now, if Tennessee hires an offensive coach and they really lean into the offensive aspect this offseason, I mean, okay, I see that there could be an improvement. But Tennessee has a lot of holes to fill. Just saying. Tennessee has a lot of holes to fill. So that coach is going to needs to be given time. Seattle, not many holes to fill. Seattle is a team that could use draft capital and trade up and bust the draft open by trading up into the top 7 with a team like Tennessee. In all the mock drafts that I do, I like the trade between the Titans and the Seahawks. I really do. Quarterbacks are going to matter, and they're going to matter that much. And if the Seattle ownership is just so done with Pete Carroll's, Geno Smith's the guy, we've got our guy, we can win with this, and they want a change, then either they're going to trade for a guy that may not be welcome in his city, of which I don't know who that is right now. Justin Herbert is probably getting Harbaugh. We'll talk about that in a second. But you got Justin Herbert, who's probably getting one of the best coaches in the league. They're not trading Herbert. Miami, maybe, and this is a big maybe willing to trade Tua. Do you bring in Tua? Is Tua better than Geno Smith in the wind and the cold? I don't think so. I really don't think so. Like, where are you going with this? Who are you trading for? What are you doing? Do you make the trade for Justin Fields? Listen, I don't think Justin Fields is a Super Bowl quarterback. I don't. But I think if a guy like Ben Johnson were to take over Seattle, I think Justin Fields could be very good with DK Metcalf and those weapons. He was good with DJ Moore. He's just not consistent enough. Maybe. I don't know. None of this makes sense this year. Arizona's not trading Kyler Murray. Or do you try to get Kyler Murray? Like, just, if you want a quarterback, where are you going to get it? Ryan Tannehill is old. He's not going to lead you to many wins. Carson Wentz is still Carson Wentz. He's going to run as the backup for the Rams next year. And should, by the way. And should. He can hide with the Rams. Like, I don't know what you do. Do you trade, instead of having to trade a bunch of draft capital, do you trade Geno Smith and your first round pick to a team in the top 7? And do they delay their quarterback for another year? There's a lot of people that are saying the Giants have a hard decision to make, because you're not going to want to have 3 quarterbacks on the books. And that's what they're going to lean towards with Daniel Jones. If they draft a rookie, and they're still going to want somebody else behind Jones. But remember, in the 2025 season, they can cut Jones, and he will only be $22.5 million against the cap. We all know this is probably the case. But if the Giants say, okay, we're going to bring in Geno, we got Daniel, it works for right now. Because we got to get Daniel Jones off the books. We have to get other holes filled. This could work. We drop down to the 16th pick in the draft. Get the quarterback. They'll probably throw a 4th, maybe a 3rd in 2025. Maybe the 4th in 2025. But you'll get 2 or 3 picks and Geno Smith for the number 6 pick. And then Seattle, you can take the hometown kid, the home kid there, Penix. You know he can throw in the weather. You know he can play there. You can take Penix. I don't like Jaden Daniels. There's 2 quarterbacks I don't believe the hype on. It's Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. I never believed the hype on Bryce Young last year. News out of college today was that Tua's brother, the quarterback at Maryland, got denied the 6-year waiver, which I was so thankful for. He's played a ton. And he wanted a 6th year. They had to stop this, and they've got to stop this. Cam Ward is no longer entering the draft. He's going back to college. So next year's draft class is still very middle of the pack. I don't think Kyle McCord is that great. I don't think Quinn Ewers is that great. Shedeur Sanders is going to be the top prospect. I don't see a lot of other guys being that level. But in a quarterback-focused, centric league, you got to try. And if you swing and miss, you move off them and go to the next one. That's it. So I don't know what Seattle's going to do. I don't. They've got the least amount of holes of any of the coaching vacancies to have to fill because they can compete now. They can just go in and compete now. Washington is a very interesting and intriguing team right now. Belichick, I know, is going to be there. Mike Vrabel, Josh Harris, hiring Adam Peters as the GM, FYI, is a fantastic move. Adam Peters is going to build another Niners team. Oh, boy. Listen, there's something about certain organizations when they turn out people as they train them to do what they do. Successful organizations, most of the time, you're able to take what they do and work it into your own system if you're actually integrated. If you're integrated. Now, the Patriot way is interesting, but it's a lot of hard-headed and stubbornness. The 49ers are a team that focuses on development. That Mike Shanahan coaching tree that has that graphic that has been up, that keeps coming back up about the Washington, at the time, Redskins. That graphic is very important because Shanahan taught all those now current coaches how to mold players, how to train players. Mike Shanahan was fantastic with undrafted players, late round picks. He was great with them. And now his son is doing the same thing. So is Sean McVay. So is Matt LaFleur. You've got an offensive coordinator now in Houston that's helping to develop a star rookie quarterback. It matters. It matters. So when you bring in a GM from the 49ers, number one, you have to acknowledge we're going to be going after draft picks. First of all, you have to acknowledge we're going to be going after draft picks. We're going to be going after getting our team built and getting the depth on the team set up. Injuries happen. They can't trip us up. Washington has a lot of trade capital in players as well as picks. You've got the number 2 pick in the draft. You need a quarterback. I'm not trading back if I'm Washington. But I am trading back in the second round. Find a team that's got 2 fourths. I'll take those. I'll take 3 fourths. Give me 2 fourth-round picks and a fourth round next year. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. How you doing? Keep it moving. Like, that's the exact way Washington is going to build a roster that is deep and ready to win. Now, let's talk about the Washington job. It's great now. I love the Washington position. The Washington team is ready to win. If there was a way for you not to have to draft a quarterback, and there is, depending on who the coach is, you could get Russell Wilson. There is a way to make this work. You've got the cap room. You've got the ability. There is a way to make this work. You can bring in Russell Wilson and then trade your second pick in the draft for a bevy of picks. A bevy of picks. There are a ton of teams that are willing to leapfrog the Patriots, knowing the Patriots are probably taking a quarterback as well. There will be a bevy of teams willing to give you first round this year, first round next year, a third round, and a fifth round. And then you're set. You can get Verse from Florida State, Chop Robinson from Penn State, Latu from UCLA. You have the options to be able to make your team the best it can be, and then you'll have 2 first-round picks the following year for your new coach as well to figure out after everything has played out and kind of settles after the first year is done. I like the Russell Wilson to Washington move. Weather isn't a big deal for him. He can play in weather. We know this. Depending on who the coach is, though, is going to be interesting. There's a lot of people that are saying it's Harbaugh to the Chargers. I still think Adam Peters, Harbaugh is going to look at the GM as well. Chargers don't have one right now. And if you give Harbaugh roster control as well, he's not going to be as good of a coach as he was in San Francisco. So I think you've got to keep the roster control away and let him just coach. Adam Peters, the new GM, will give Harbaugh a team and set a team up for him to be able to win. If that's the case, Harbaugh is definitely drafting a Drake May, a Jaden Daniels, or Michael Penix. He played Michael Penix multiple times. He's seen him. He knows what he needs to fix on him. He knows his weakness, but he also knows his strength. One of the prettiest, purest throwers, and a lefty. One of the prettiest throwers of a football there is. That simple. So I think you've got a interesting, and I'll keep saying this, I've said it before, and I said we're going to say this for forever at this point, unless they change the rule. The NFL got it right. delaying the ability to hire coaches officially has given this part of the offseason time to actually be thought out. Nobody had to be fired on Monday, for sure. You could fire them Tuesday. You can fire them Wednesday. You could fire them Thursday. As what happened. We watched it take place. And then you're not at a disadvantage if you're a team that just lost in Wild Card Weekend. The Steelers, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Rams ain't going anywhere. The Dolphins ain't going anywhere. Sean McVay and Mike McDaniel are perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Neither one of those two are going anywhere. Kevin Stefanski ain't moving. But Dallas, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, you got questions. You got questions. And they don't have pressure now to fire them Monday, or as I was wondering if would happen if Lowry was going to fire Sirianni on the airplane on the way home. He doesn't have to now. He doesn't have to hurry up and get his position in the hat to be able to get one of these guys. He's got time. He can take a deep breath. He can breathe, which is why I don't think Jerry Jones fires McCarthy. I'm about 60% he doesn't fire him, 40% he does. He could be really pissed off about how badly he got embarrassed in a primetime slot, like the Cowboys always are, at home in a playoff game against the 7th seed, the worst seed in the playoffs, and the youngest team to ever enter the playoffs, bulldoze your team who's been there before. That's it. So I can still see it happening, but I'm about 60-40. He doesn't make that move right now. But he could. It's Jerry Jones. Jeffrey Lowry, I'm about 90% you fire Sirianni. Your team gave up. The collapse was epic. In January of 2022, January 2nd, the Colts played the Raiders. On January 9th, the Colts played the Jaguars. The Jaguars that year were the worst team in the NFL. That's the year with Urban Meyer. The last year with Urban Meyer. And the Raiders, that is the year that Rich Bisaccia was filling in for John Gruden. They needed to win one of those two final games to make the playoffs. Oddly enough, the team that slid into the playoffs, backdoor slid into the playoffs, were the Steelers. Because the Colts did not take care of business. The Colts lost to the Raiders at home, Derek Carr, and then they lost to the Jaguars on the road in an embarrassing fashion. People weren't calling it a collapse necessarily at that time. But what you saw in that final game, where it was a play-in game, you beat the Jags, you're in. the team wasn't prepared. And after that game, everybody in Indy realized Frank Reich doesn't have it. We're not going to win in the playoffs with Frank Reich. We were not even ready to play football against the worst team in the league. Translation: Mike McCarthy, 2 years in a row, not even ready to play football in the playoffs. This year against the worst team that made the playoffs. So there is a correlation. And the call for Mike McCarthy's head is getting hotter and hotter on the internet because they see the coaching mismatch. He got outcoached by Matt LaFleur. He's been outcoached by a ton of other coaches. Dak is 2-5 in the postseason. And not 2-5 pretty games where it was hard fought, really close. No. You got one, maybe two of those. You're getting beat handily. It's got to get fixed. So I could see Jerry Jones making the move. The Eagles have done this before. They've made moves before. Eagles have done this before. They fired Andy Reid. They fired Doug Peterson. They can fire Nick Sirianni after making a Super Bowl too. In making the Super Bowl under the perfect scenario, the way assistants are grabbed up now, whether they should be a head coach or not, i.e. Sirianni. The Colts had a little bit of success. Nick Sirianni plucked away from Indianapolis. Everybody goes, why is he a head coach? Don't know why he's the head coach. Matt Eberflus taken away to Chicago. Everybody went, it's a Chicago move. It's the Bears move. But it never made any sense. Not once. So looking at these continued coaching vacancies, which will start filling up, and you're going to hear the rumors this weekend. This weekend is when those rumors will really start ramping up because people can actually sign on Monday. It can become official. We can get our coach. We can do this. We can go for it. So look for the rumor mill to be hot. And I mean red hot this weekend. Plenty of stuff to be able to talk about by the time the weekend rolls around. But it's interesting. It's just really interesting. I'm not sure where a couple of the teams are going to go that fire coaches that it doesn't make any sense. You've got other teams now because you've got Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh, Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel. If all four of those guys get a coaching position, okay, let's just say all four of them get hired, that now takes down the amount of assistants that need to get hired elsewhere. I said it last week and I'll say it again. If Raheem Morris gets if Raheem Morris gets hired as a head coach of a football team, Brandon Staley, I believe, will go back with Sean McVay. Sean will call Brandon up and say, hey, come on. Raheem is out. I need my defensive coordinator. Bring it back. Come on. Let's go for this. Build it back up. Get his confidence back. Take all the pressure of being a head coach off, where he focuses on the defense alone. Another guy is going to bring in Arthur Smith and tell him, you've got the offense. That's your only concern. Run it, build it, grow it, do what we need to do. It all makes sense. So I can't wait. I can't wait. I am on the edge of my seat for this, and I cannot wait to see where the coaches go, because that is going to then change what the mock drafts look like and what we think these teams will do through free agency, through the period of being able to trade players early, through the draft process. It changes the next 3 months of football. But we got to know who's running the team. We got to know who's there. And yes, I don't want to skip past all the great matchups this weekend. And we're going to go over those tomorrow. We're going to go dive into each one of these individual matchups tomorrow. But the coaching stuff, it matters. Coaching matters. McVay, still in playoffs. Shanahan, number one. John Harbaugh, number one. Sean McDermott, was on the verge of potentially getting run out of town. Humbled himself, said, I'm wrong. Let's fix this thing. Got it right. That team hasn't lost since then. That team looks good. They look strong. They look together. They're united and they're moving forward, and they're the best, to me, the best threat to the 2 number 1 seeds there are in football. I think the Bills would squash the Lions and everybody else. I think they're going to beat the Chiefs this weekend in Buffalo. Buffalo is not the team you want to face right now. They're just not. But we will get into that tomorrow. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Way too early, top 5 coaches on the hot seat for 2024. Coaching position analysis from the individual teams. Probably break down different teams that are still open after the divisional round takes place. Tomorrow we're going to do our preview episode as we look ahead to Saturday. Dive down deep into what these matchups are. Look at the previous matchup, what has happened, and see what may happen this week. But guys, thank you so much for listening. If you're on Spotify, thank you for stopping by. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that like button. It is deeply appreciated. Guys, thank you so much. This has been Football Talk with Hawk. I'm Hawk, and I'm out.